Today I'm going to be breaking down D&D by Bella Shmurda and Lil Kesh, where as usual I'm going to be talking you through the various elements that I'm picking up on as we go through it. So just before we do go ahead and get into the video, quick announcement. So this is going to be the last video that I'm doing for probably a little bit over a week. My son actually has a basketball camp out in Serbia where he's going to be training with some NBA coaches. So I'm going to be going out there with him. So obviously won't be around to record content, but never you worry, right? When I come back, I will be back on it. And just very quickly, guys, listen, if you're interested in my setup, i.e. headphones, mic or camera, I put links to those in the description below. Also, if you're on TikTok, you want to give us a follow, show us some love, then by all means, feel free. Let's get it.
Got my phone on lock, do not disturb. If I no respond, now you did give me joy. One time
nice vocals.
You know the matter could be me love, cause I am so in love, and I want it all. One time is not enough.
Alright guys, so we are literally about to hit the chorus. So let's go ahead, let's break down the intro and let's break down the first verse. So the first thing that we notice in the intro is we get opened up with some core percussions, right? No kick drum, at least at the start of the intro. We got some keys in there as well. And as we progress on through the intro, this is where the kick drum comes in. We also get some vocal sounds as well. We get taken out of the intro into the first verse by a simple beat cut. But when we hit that first verse, what you notice is that the track gets stripped back a little bit, right? It's definitely not as full when we hit that first verse as what it was in the intro. Another thing to pay attention to is what's happening with the vocals. So we get this lead vocal, but then we also get a follow-up vocal. So we get lead vocal, lead vocal, and that's pretty kind of consistent throughout. The bass is also in the mix, but it's very subtle and it's not constantly in there either. That's another thing to pay attention to. And then the final thing is we get some percussive hits. We actually get two of them, right? So we get the first one that happens midway through the first verse, and then we get the second one that happens at the back end of the first verse. Only that second one that happens is being used more as a transition to shift us from the first verse into the chorus. So let's go back, let's listen. All right, keys, core percussions, kick drum coming in, there. Listen to the vocal sound, it's gonna be one coming up. There, cut. Strip back slightly, follow up vocals.
One time is not enough, you know the matter could be me love, cause I am so in love, and I want it all. One time is not enough.
Hits. Okay, right, so as we're entering into a cutscene of the video, let's talk about what we've heard in the chorus. So the first thing that we notice about the chorus is that the bass line is much more prominent, much more present compared to what it was when we were in the first verse. Second thing to pay attention to is we actually get two additional layers. So the first one is way more obvious, and it's this higher range layer. I don't know what the instrument is, but it's like dun 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 dun. It's kind of following more along sort of like the rhythm of, you know, the beat or the bass line. The second one, which is way more subtle, and you're gonna have to listen really hard for it, is we seem to have like this xylophone in there. It might not be a xylophone, but it definitely sounds like it to me. But again, that is very far back into the mix, so you are gonna have to listen hard. Another thing to pay attention to is Bella Shmurda's flow. We notice that it becomes a lot more pacey, a lot more rhythmic than what it was in the first verse. Sticking with the vocals, listen to the follow-up vocals that we were talking about, right? So we still have that theme of the lead vocal and then something being followed up, only this time the follow-up vocals, one, what they're saying is different, but two, they're definitely more layered, more stacked, right? You can hear multiple ranges in there, and you can also hear that they're being harmonized. And then the final thing, just as a more of a side note really to pay attention to is also within the chorus we begin to hear ad-libs coming in from Bella Shmurda. So let's go back, let's listen.
Could be me love, cause I am so in love, and I want it all. One time is not enough.
Here we go. Hear that higher layer? Listen to the follow-ups. Different, bro.
Timo, whiskey. Tonight is so risky. Tonight I will break your back. Spank your nyash, my tin is sweet like pipe alive. Are you old enough to touch your toes? Will you swallow nothing at the back of your throat? Can you take it from the back? Can you climb the pole? Can you titty party pole? Casa, she say master. Give me faster. She say rasta.
Chorus layer in there now.
Shut up, Joe, you do. This big up on you to mama.
Hear that?
Call me boo. You're gonna swallow all my ole. Still my heart away. Yeah, Ajibole. Shole. Ole. Still my heart away.
Yeah, nice beat cut.
Shole. From Calabar. Don't cause you.
Okay, right, so before we go ahead and kind of get into the second verse from Bella Shmurda anyway, let's talk about Lil Kesh's verse and also the refrain that's happened within the track. So there's a couple of things that we need to pay attention to here. So the first one is what happens when we first hear Lil Kesh's verse. What we notice is that the track gets stripped back. Yes, the track has been stripped back before, but it is slightly different here. What you notice is that we're at bare bones level, right? All that we have is beat and bass. Now, what they do to kind of keep things shifting, to keep the listener engaged, to ensure that it doesn't come or become monotonous, is they bring in two layers. Now, one of them we've already heard before, and it's the one that we're calling the xylophone, although we can't be 100% certain. And that's really nice when it comes in, right? Because it comes in with this cheeky riff, it's got this jazzy kind of feel to it, and it absolutely bangs. But then what happens immediately after that, we then get a layer that's further back in the mix, right? And it's got this kind of spooky and haunting type feel, but not in a kind of depressing way, actually in quite an oddly cheering way that complements the feel and the vibe of the track. Then as we head towards the back end of Lil Kesh's verse, this is where we hear that chorus layer come in. So do, and that just kind of again just adds a nice touch to the back end. Then we shift into the refrain. So for anybody that doesn't know what a refrain is, it's just, well, essentially it is a repeated set of lines, typically the most memorable or most catchiest part of the track. And this is where we start to get more kind of familiar stuff come in that we've heard before, right, from the chorus. So obviously the bass is in there. Listen to the vocals. We've got that lead vocal and the follow-up happening, right? And we also get that chorus layer again, right? That's in there. But, you know, they do give us, just to kind of make it different, they do give us a cheeky kind of beat cut in the middle of the refrain. Let's go back. Let's listen.
Timo, whiskey. Tonight
back.
so risky. Tonight
Little jazzy thing gonna happen now. Listen.
There,
mate. Bangs. Spooky layer. Chorus layer. Hear that?
Shut up, Joe, you do. This big gun turn you to mumu. Call me zaddy, call me boo boo. You're gonna swallow all my ulu.
Refrain.
Still my heart away. Yeah, Ajibole.
Hear the follow-ups. Chorus layer is in there as well. Beat cut.
Don't cause you casala. That's me, I'm Nenepa. Price my tea like dollar. I'ma she know say I be dandana. This man know I'd rather. Rise me up like Nepal. Rise my tea like dollar. Oh le le le, oh le le, oh le le le. This is where you carry baby me. Oh le le le, oh le le le, oh le.
All right, so just before we continue, because I can tell we're about to kind of shift back into the chorus, let's cover off Bella Shmurda's second verse. So the first thing that we notice that is completely different from Bella Shmurda's second verse to his first verse is that all the layers are now at play here. Right, and we've already discussed these layers because they happened in the intro, they happened in the first verse, they happened in Lil Kesh's stuff, but what they've done is they've just brought them all together now, right? So we have that chorus layer in there. We've got the xylophone in there. We've got that spooky layer in there as well. Another thing to pay attention to is we get two beat chops. We get one as we enter the verse. We get another one just as we're about to leave the verse. And the final thing to listen out for is what's actually going on with Bella Shmurda's vocals. And I made a mental note of this when I was listening to the first verse, I was listening to the chorus. I just didn't bring it up because I didn't think it was massively important. But what we hear is Bella Shmurda's vocals starting to become layered and stacked, right? Harmonized and all this sort of stuff. Now, we didn't have that in the first verse and we didn't have that in the chorus. And it's not that I thought it was strange, but I just kind of thought, oh, actually, that's interesting because normally, definitely within a chorus, they kind of stack and layer stuff, but they didn't. But we are getting it now. So again, you know, something different that's happening in this part of the song that hasn't happened up until this point. Let's go back. Let's listen. Right, coming in. Right, here we go. Big shots. There. Bangs, man. Listen to all the different layers. Nice vocal layers, man. Follow-ups. Hits there. Cut. Chorus layer in now. Take us out. Okay, that's it for me. If you want to see more breakdown and analyses videos, there'll be things popping up on the screen right now. Other than that, don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications, and I will see you next week.